Welcome to everyone to our conversation on teacher professional development systems for equity and quality, tinkering or shifting the paradigm. My name is Victoria Tino, Executive Director of the Foundation for Information Technology Education and Development, or FITED, in the Philippines, and I will be your host this evening. Over the next hour and a half, we will explore emerging insights and ongoing activities from the Empowering Teachers Initiative, Teacher Professional Development at Scale, or ETI. ETI is a multi-country research for development program co-led by FITED and SUMMA, the Laboratory for Education Research and Innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean, based in Chile, with the generous support of the International Development Research Center, or IDRC, in Canada. It is part of the continuing work of the TPD Scale Coalition for the Global South. We are delighted to have all of you here, whether in person in Hanoi or joining us via live stream from around the world. Your participation speaks to the global significance of this dialogue, and we sincerely appreciate your engagement. For those joining us on the TPD at Scale Coalition YouTube channel, we encourage you to share your comments and questions in the live chat, and we invite you to continue the conversation on social media as well. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Fernando Perini, Team Leader for Education and Science at the International Development Research Center, who will offer a few words of welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm really excited to welcome you to the second meeting of the TPD at Scale Coalition for the Global South. My name is Fernando Perini and I'm here on behalf of the International Development Research Center, IDRC, where I am the team leader for education and science. Since 2018, IDRC has proudly supported the TPD at Scale Coalition. This coalition was created to address this huge challenge we face, the need for 44 million more teachers by 2030, according to the UNESCO. This is an especially tough issue in the Global South, where you know that the education inequalities are most severe. We all know that teachers are the backbone of our education systems. They make education meaningful, particularly for children from vulnerable backgrounds. But many teachers are working very, very tough conditions these days, and with limited training, low recognition, and inadequate pay. These obstacles can definitely prevent them from doing their best work in the classroom. The TPD at Scale Coalition is here to help change that by improving teacher professional development, TPD systems on a large scale. So today I'm really thrilled to introduce the Empowering Teachers Initiative, ETI, one of IDRC's new programs together with TPD at Scale. ETI is focused on improving teacher practice in the Global South by making TPD more equitable, higher quality, and more efficient. This program supports our broader goal of achieving SDG number 4, quality education for all. ETI has 3 main goals: figuring out the best way to scale up quality TPD, strengthening the skills of local education leaders, and supporting policies that promote inclusive, effective teaching professional development. This initiative also ties in with IDRC's Education and Science Strategy 2030, which envisions a world where children from vulnerable populations receive high-quality education and women become leaders in science. As we know that the path for women in science starts with girls in school, obviously, this is a very important alignment for us. At IDRC, we strongly believe that the power of innovative research, especially research led from the Global South, to inform education policies and practices in low and middle-income countries. So we are very committed to research on education that isn't just a theoretical research. It needs to be research that affects what is happening every day in classrooms around the world. And of course, we especially try and aim to reach out and focus on vulnerable populations. As we gather here today, we'll be discussing an important question. Do we need a new way to think about how to scale teaching professional development? This webinar is a great chance for us to explore how we can tackle the teacher shortage while making sure that education remains both equitable and high quality. We will also be talking about how new and existing digital technologies can make TPD more accessible and relevant for teachers in different settings. So thank you very much for being here today. Your insights and your participation are incredibly valuable, and we are looking forward to working closely with you to improve teacher professional development and ultimately education for all.
Thank you to Fernando, and sincere thanks to IDRC for their ongoing support of the work of the TPD at Scale Coalition. Next, we will hear from Professor Le An Van, Director General of the Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences, Director of the National Center for Sustainable Development of General Education Quality, and Principal Investigator of the ETI Vietnam Country Study in partnership with VNIES. Professor Van.
Good evening, everyone from Hanoi, the city of rich culture and history. My name is Lê Anh Vinh. I'm a Director General of Vietnam National Institute of Educational Science. It's our pleasure to welcome you all to Hanoi. And I would like to thank you, FIDET and SUMMA, and all of the college, all of the research team to select Hanoi as a location for the second global meeting. And I hope that the beauty of Hanoi is a good background for our meeting. We all know that the teacher is the most important for the education system. And the quality of education system, it depends a lot of the quality of the teachers. And Venice is feel very appreciated and lucky that we join the board with all other research team leading by SUMMA and FIDET on this journey. So as Freda always mentioned, we know something works for the teacher, but we find very difficult to make it at a larger scale. And this kind of the meeting, this kind of the collaboration work, I think is very important when we can come, we can share, and we can learn from each other how we can have a TPD for the teacher in a more effective way. And I think it will be creating a journey for us and also creating a learning community between different partners, different research teams in this group. And the final words, I wish all of you who can make the visit to Hanoi, the rest of the trip with the food and the hospitality of Vietnam. And for those who cannot come, I'm sorry, you missed a lot. And I hope that you will come another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vinh, for your inspiring words and for the very warm welcome to beautiful Hanoi. It has been 6 years since we embarked on our TPD at Scale journey with the coalition. And during this time, our coalition has grown to include many organizations worldwide. Together, we have worked to deepen our understanding of large-scale teacher professional development in diverse contexts across the Global South through the lenses of equity, quality, and efficiency. Our efforts have generated a wealth of knowledge products, which we have shared widely. And as our work has evolved, so has our approach, foregrounding the importance of adaptation for effective scaling, while also recognizing the challenges in achieving system coherence at every level. Tonight's event provides a valuable moment for reflection on the progress we have made as a coalition, as well as an opportunity to look forward to our future endeavors and partnerships. With that, we invite you to watch a video on the coalition and ETI. Let's take a look.
there is an urgent need for 44 million more teachers by 2030 to meet the scale of worldwide educational challenges, especially in the Global South. But while the demand for more teachers across the Global South is immense, the even greater challenge is improving teaching quality. How can we equip teachers in the Global South with the knowledge and skills they need to transform teaching and learning? How do we empower teachers to be more effective agents of change for their communities? The TPD Scale Coalition for the Global South is a response to this challenge. The coalition is a collaborative effort of stakeholders in education and information and communications technology who are engaged in teacher professional development. It was initiated in 2018 by the Foundation for Information Technology Education and Development, FITED, with 18 universities, international NGOs, government agencies, and donors as founding members. Our aim is to contribute to the attainment of Sustainable Development Goal 4 by promoting quality, equitable and sustainable large-scale ICT-mediated TPD, what we call TPD at scale, through collaboration, research and implementation support. Since inception, FITED has served as the Coalition Secretariat and Global Lead. SUMMA, the Laboratory of Education Research and Innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean, is the coalition lead for the region. The International Development Research Center, IDRC, has supported the coalition's research, technical assistance, capacity strengthening, policy and practice influencing, and knowledge mobilization work in 30 countries across the Global South. Our work in these countries over the past 6 years has focused on establishing the theoretical grounding of the TPD at scale approach, building empirical evidence on the TPD at scale models and systems in the Global South, and developing practical tools for decision makers and practitioners across the Global South. The Empowering Teachers Initiative, Teacher Professional Development at Scale, marks the next phase of the coalition's work, led by FITED and SUMMA, with continuing support from IDRC. ETI will drive research on large-scale TPD systems to deepen our understanding of a key principle of TPD at scale, designed for scale, localized for inclusion. ETI has awarded research grants to 10 Global South country teams and provides technical assistance to third-party funded research teams to conduct national or subnational studies on how to equitably scale quality TPD in the Global South to meet the professional learning needs of diverse groups of teachers. Regional research is also underway, with more in the pipeline.
The value I'm seeing especially is the fact that they are focusing on teachers, as I've said, somehow, and bringing together really researchers from different parts of the world to look at issues of how to improve teacher professional development, especially in the Global South. This initiative has come at the right time.
I think that the initiative can contribute to improving the quality of teaching across the various Global South contexts.
The impact that we are envisioning that this research is going to achieve is being able to adapt teacher professional development.
Otro valor que encontramos desde el equipo a esta iniciativa tiene que ver con el marco flexible, porque es un marco bien dúctil, bien elástico, que da lugar a la posibilidad de realizar adaptaciones según las necesidades del desarrollo profesional docente.
I think any work that elevates teachers' voices to policymakers is going to help strengthen education policies and decision makers' understanding of teachers' needs.
Improving teacher professional development is crucial for increasing access to quality teaching. Thus, the Empowering Teachers Initiative project of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education aims to enhance the TPD systems in Southeast Asia.
ATI approach is holistic. In this project, we are also trying to promote the ICT skills of the refugee educators along with the pedagogy of care.
Is that it provides for us an avenue of collaboration and also of knowledge sharing.
There is enormous potential for peer learning and cross-learning across these projects. This enables us to further enrich our understanding of teacher development and TPD at scale across different contexts.
Because we all know that in order to implement the new curriculum, in order to successfully reform for the education system, the most important is to prepare for the teacher.
If we want to impact the whole system, we need to fit that methodology in the curriculum, and that would be really awesome because we would be transforming education for all teachers and for all students.
Pensamos en que el impacto sustantivo, ¿no?, sea más profundo, que llegue a quien más tiene que llegar, que pueda alcanzar a las personas que más lo necesiten.
The TPD at Scale Coalition for the Global South invites you to join us in putting teachers at the center as we seek to improve equity, quality, and efficiency in large-scale TPD systems in the Global South.
Now we move on to the most exciting part of the evening. The question of whether to tinker or shift the paradigm in achieving equity and quality in TPD systems across the Global South lies at the heart of the TPD at Scale project. To explore this critical issue, I now invite Frida Wolfenden, Professor of Education and International Development at the Open University, UK, and Research Lead for ETI, to share her reflections. Frida?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to colleagues here in the room in Hanoi and across the world. I've been asked today to share some thoughts on the question, teacher professional development systems for equity and quality, tinkering or shifting the paradigm. In this, I will draw on recent research we've undertaken in various projects of the TPD at Scale Coalition, and most recently on experiences and emerging findings from our current research project, Empowering Teachers Initiative, which you've just heard about. To start, I'm just going to spend a few seconds unwrapping the question. What do we mean by tinkering or altering the paradigm? Then I will go on to outline what I see as being 3 challenges with many current TPD systems, and then offer 4 points looking towards a new paradigm in TPD systems. So I'm understanding tinkering to mean making small changes or adjustments to a TPD system in an attempt to repair or improve it. But often, in English, we use the word tinkering to mean without deep understanding or knowledge or expertise of what you're working on. So tinkering isn't necessarily a helpful or a productive activity. And I'm shifting the paradigm to mean changing the usual accepted way in which we organise and make available opportunities for teachers' professional learning, the TPD system. I'm going to suggest that in every country, the public education system includes a subsystem, which is the TPD system. By that I mean TPD that's offered at scale. So, why are we talking about this? Why focus on TPD? In a recent scoping study, we looked at education sector plans or similar documents, planning documents, from over 25 countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. All recognise the role of teachers in improving education outcomes for learners. All included mention of the need to enhance teachers' skills. This took various forms. It might be improving the skills and capabilities of specific groups of teachers, for example, those working in remote or rural areas. We see that in the plans from Pakistan, those who are unqualified, particularly highlighted in Sierra Leone. In other countries, the focus might be on a particular skill set for teachers or an issue which pertains to teachers' work. The pedagogic use of ICTs in India and many countries in Africa. Fluency in the language of teaching and learning. We see that highlighted in the plans from Sri Lanka. Or gender-responsive pedagogy in Niger. Several plans detail improvements in TPD country systems. The ambition to move to greater use of ICTs in TPD, for example, through the use of large online platforms, such as in Ecuador. Better linking TPD to career development features highly in the plans from Côte d'Ivoire, and strengthening school-based teacher mentoring, for example, in Kenya. So, all this emphasis on teachers, all this emphasis on TPD. Why is there a problem? Why are we discussing it? Why might TPD systems need more than such incremental improvement to deliver on the ambitions of SDG 4? We know much about what's needed to support teachers to develop their practice. Collaboration, expert guidance at times, good quality materials, TPD that's continuous, and so on. However, our work would suggest that currently systems are not ensuring that teachers are equipped to address the complex and shifting needs of their students and their communities. And I'm identifying from this large body of work that Vicky has drawn attention to, I'm identifying 3 dimensions of TPD systems which I would suggest are currently less than optimal. Equity, quality, and coherence. First, I would suggest there's an absence of consideration of equity for teachers in TPD systems. At its simplest, many teachers do not experience regular opportunities to participate in professional learning activities. Perhaps they've not been selected to participate in the TPD workshop or programme. Or, particularly for women teachers, maybe the TPD is being held at a time, in a place, in a space which is not accessible to them for cultural, safety, or because of domestic and family demands. One of our ETI researchers recently reported that a young female refugee school teacher was only able to attend the local TPD session when accompanied by her mother. Otherwise, there might have been safety issues, cultural norms, etc., which precluded her from participating. But this situation is complex. It isn't just women. Sometimes men in rural schools too may find themselves with few opportunities to participate in TPD. Our colleagues in the ETI projects are finding that TPD opportunities are rarely formally adjusted to enable full participation by teachers with disabilities. There are examples where teachers in schools are making local adjustments in the TPD session to enable their peers with disabilities to take part. But this is there to fill the gaps because there is no system recognition of the needs of teachers with disabilities. Colleagues in ETI are also highlighting other groups who might have less access to TPD than their peers. For example, teachers with chronic illness. The recent move to ICT-mediated TPD is expanding the reach of TPD, but also excluding many teachers, especially those working in less well-resourced communities without a regular power supply or connectivity, or even access to a mobile phone. Our colleagues in India observe women teachers needing to ask to borrow a phone from a family member to access their professional learning. Other teachers have yet to acquire the digital wisdom to enable them to utilise this mode of TPD with confidence. However, in our work, we've also found government officials perceiving TPD provision to be equitable because it's open to everyone. Anyone can access the course on the national VLE. What's the problem? I think there is a problem. This also highlights another dimension of equity, the lack of differentiation in TPD. In many places, the TPD offer, the content, is standardised, not recognising the different professional needs of different groups of teachers. This one-size-fits-all approach is neither effective nor an efficient use of limited resources. So moving on from equity, secondly, I want to point to a challenge of quality in many TPD systems. Although we're seeing a welcome move to more personalised, more classroom-situated professional learning, for example, mentoring and coaching, in many cases these activities are carried out in a manner which is highly judgmental rather than supporting and enabling. We still encounter examples of cascade models of TPD, despite its well-recorded limited effectiveness. The latest wave of TPD initiatives have all enthusiastically embraced spaces for teacher collaboration. Excellent. Scholarship tells us that this is a core component of effective TPD and has potential to support attention to local problems of practice. But the reality on the ground is far from ideal. Many of these teacher collaboration spaces, communities of practice, professional learning communities, teacher circles, teacher action groups, etc., vary widely in quality. Often collaboration remains at the level of swapping stories rather than moving to shared reflection and collective classroom inquiry. As we found in our work in Ghana on a KICS project, sometimes PLCs have been mandated for all schools without provision of resources or guidance, or making their purpose clear to teachers. Just to be clear, that situation is now being rectified in Ghana, and all schools are being provided with material for their PLCs. Then thirdly, a challenge of coherence. Perhaps we talk about this less. TPD policies are often agreed and implemented without sufficient consideration of the wider context and how they might interact with the education system conditions, a form of external coherence. Additionally, internal coherence can be weak. Coherence between elements of the TPD programme are frequently not present. For an example, an absence of attention to the professional learning needs of those who support teachers, district officials, teacher educators, and so on, making that part of the TPD system less than effective. Our recent research in Honduras, again on a TPD project, illuminated how teachers feel teacher educators are very distant from the contemporary realities of their classrooms and the current conditions in schools. They wanted those teacher educators to spend time with them in their classrooms. It's not uncommon also for school leaders or head teachers to be absent from the TPD design. This limits how they can support teachers and link TPD into broader improvement initiatives. Finally, I want to suggest that in many contexts there's an absence of coherence creation, the third type of coherence. And in this I'm referring to the way TPD goals and activities are developed and implemented, ideally with all stakeholders, including teachers. Often we find a plethora of TPD initiatives from different donors and other actors, all trying to compete in the same space. Many of these are imposed on teachers without meaningful consultation and rarely operate in a coordinated manner, as our ETI team in Zambia are finding. They recently identified 9 major initiatives operating with schools in Central Province in Zambia. This leads to teacher fatigue. Who wouldn't be? And teacher confusion as teachers lurch from one initiative to the next lacking a coherent professional learning pathway. Of course, these critiques are not seen into the same level in each education system, nor are systems static. As we noted earlier, there's much change taking place. But many TPD systems are not yet fit for purpose and require improvement if we're to meet the goals of SDG 4. So I want to suggest 4 characteristics of a new paradigm for TPD. Firstly, teachers at the centre. This seems obvious, but too rarely is the starting point for TPD system design. Teachers need to be recognised as professionals, and TPD needs to be understood as an investment in teachers to enable them to become career-long learners, able to exercise professional judgment in new and difficult classroom situations. New curricula, more diverse group of learners, new assessment systems, and so on. Putting teachers at the centre requires an ontological shift in the relationship between their educators and the teachers as learners. So I would suggest that TPD systems need to be designed to build on what teachers know, not treat them as having little knowledge or capacity, to enable teachers to plan and experience coherent learning journeys. TPD systems also need to be flexible, include different modalities and provision to enable professional learning to be matched to the development needs of the teacher, their classroom, their school context, their previous experience, their characteristics, and so on. The TPD needs to be valuable, relevant, and integral to teachers' everyday practice, to recognise diversity, to improve equity. Equity in TPD is also interwoven with the social conditions in which teachers work and learn. These need attention, which takes us to the second characteristic: balancing teacher voice with system coherence. Teacher learning needs to be linked to system learning to improve equity and quality in TPD, and through that, we hope, improving classroom practice. Tensions or contradictions need to be worked through to enable these to become productive. For example, in Ghana, we saw that teachers are able to select their TPD from a range of courses and programs accessed through a national portal. Great, you'll say. This gives teachers agency to choose TPD which matches their professional needs. But it can also make it difficult for teachers to collaborate with colleagues in their area. They choose a course, nobody else is doing that course in their district, or maybe even in their entire region. And also, teachers can select courses which are perhaps less relevant to the needs of their students, but maybe because they think it's interesting. Perhaps nothing wrong with that. We don't want to deprive teachers of the opportunity to extend their learning in multiple directions. But we also do have a mandate in public systems to improve the learning of the children. So in the course we were offering, we found many teachers in junior secondary schools registering for and participating in an innovative online program concerned with early grade reading. So perhaps a little mismatch there. But in my new paradigm, TPD is designed and evaluated within a national framework to facilitate alignment with national priorities where appropriate, but also giving teachers choice and to ensure that TPD is quality assured. Many countries have no systems for quality assuring TPD at the moment. Finally, TPD systems need to cohere with initial teacher education, curricula and assessment systems. My third characteristic is continuous improvement. Systems of TPD need to be dynamic. They need to respond to the changing demands of the external environment and to wider societal and community issues. The climate crisis, poverty, increasing mobility of people and fragility of communities, the growing ubiquity of AI, and so on. The list is rather long. Hence, TPD systems need to include feedback loops, not as additional sporadic activities, but integrated into the daily activities of actors working within the system in the service of continuous quality improvement. In our work on a KICS project, we utilise tools from improvement science, specifically Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles, PDSA, to improve the TPD model. But of course, there are other tools that can be deployed to this end. These tools need to look at processes across the system and to encourage adaptation in service of greater equity. My final point refers to the need for TPD systems to be underpinned by research. Creating a new paradigm for TPD requires us to understand more about how to design and implement quality, equitable TPD at scale in the context of the Global South. I think that's very important. Much of the research we're currently drawing on is from the Global North. And much current research focuses on individual programs, their characteristics and short-term improvements. And once the funding ends, often the knowledge is not taken forward into the next program or into system learning. We recently undertook a scoping study to inform the ETI program. This identified gaps in contemporary scholarship and proposed an agenda for TPD systems research relevant to country TPD priorities. The agenda comprised several topics. I won't list them all here. Not surprisingly, equity in TPD was in there. We know little about teachers' lived realities of TPD, the spaces and resources they find most helpful. TPD systems and models also featured. How can adaptation be integral to TPD design and implementation in a dynamic manner? How might teachers' learning be recorded in ways which are helpful to them, not just as attendance at a workshop or a program or a community of practice or a PLC, but recorded in ways that are formative, which can be used to help them to inform their future learning, much as we aim to do with students in the classroom. What's the potential of emerging technologies to reframe pedagogies in TPD and modalities of TPD? I think that's potentially a very exciting area. In each case, we need to orient the research to understand how these issues impact on the TPD system, coherence across levels and components. Teachers should be collaborators in the research community to bring multiple perspectives, and not forgetting the need to study the resource implications of different models, modalities, and adaptations. So, to return to the original question, my response is that this sets up a somewhat artificial dichotomy. Both a paradigm shift and informed tinkering are needed. The paradigm shift must be to a system whose design embraces flexibility, is able to continuously improve, is focused on equity, and underpinned by research from the Global South. But within this system, we need small experiments by teachers, school leaders, head teachers, district officials. These should be facilitated. Low-stakes tinkering to effect improvements oriented to local conditions and needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frida, for a very illuminating presentation, your well-considered thoughts and insights, and that intriguing response to our central question. We now turn to our distinguished panel of experts who will offer valuable perspectives from the Global South on whether we should focus on incremental reforms or a fundamental shift in how we approach at-scale TPD systems, or, as Frida has just suggested, a combination of both. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists. Joining us online is Mr. Carlos Vargas, head of the Secretariat for the Teachers Task Force at UNESCO. Also joining us online is Professor Padma Sarangapani, head of the Center for Teacher Education at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai, India. Here with us is Dr. Jolly M. Rubagiza, Associate Professor at the Center for Gender Studies of the University of Rwanda and co-principal investigator of the ETI Rwanda country study in partnership with the British Council. Finally, also here in the room with us is Dr. Sebastian Fuentes, coordinator of the education research at Flaxo, Argentina, and the senior researcher and manager of the ETI Argentina country study in partnership with Flaxo. Moderating the panel is Dr. Lim Cherping, Chair Professor of Learning Technologies and Innovation at the Education University of Hong Kong, co-director of the Global Institute of Emerging Technologies, and our ETI Impact Lead. Professor Lim, over to you.
Hi, a very good morning, afternoon, evening to all. It is Hanoi time, 7:45, right? So it's like GMT +7. Just to briefly run through the key points that the speakers before this panel have actually made. I think the key thing that we are really trying to be able to do here is to be able to empower teacher agency, right? And to be able to ensure that teachers are the one that is at the center that will be managing and monitoring their professional learning, right? So it's something that we have got to keep in mind. And the thing is, we also actually speak quite a lot about the role of ICT, or information and communication technologies, in terms of how do we design at scale, right? How do we ensure scale by using technologies to mediate that professional learning process? But the thing is, what is really important is how then could we try to adapt and localize, right, to ensure that the professional learning that the teachers engage in is inclusive and equitable, right? And of course, we went on to talk about system learning and the need for an ecosystem that will be able to drive and support effective TPD. Okay, just in case you feel like you're interacting with ChatGPT, let us just call upon our real so-called human beings that I would be asking a couple of questions. So we have got two that is with us virtually, and we have got two with us here on site. What we are going to do for this panel, it's quite a long panel, right? There are 3 parts. So the first part is each panelist would get an individual question, right, based on their expertise and experiences. Right, and then after that, we'll move on to part 2, where I would be throwing out a general question to the 4 of them. And finally, we would open up to the floor, both on-site and online, right, where the panelists would be taking on up to about 3 questions. Right, so the first question would be to Carlos, who is the head of the Secretariat for Teachers Task Force of UNESCO, right? So the question to Carlos would be, how can TPD systems be restructured to address teacher shortages, as what we see in the video, and yet ensuring equity and quality? So I would throw that question to Carlos, and you have got 4 minutes. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Lim, and good evening to everybody in Hanoi. It's been a long day, so I will not take a lot of your time, and good evening to everybody, and morning to everybody online. Maybe just to answer your question about teacher professional development systems and the dilemma of tinkering or shift of the paradigm. Maybe I can share that UNESCO has been promoting the status of teachers as public intellectuals, as researchers, as reflective practitioners, and therefore as fundamental actors in education whose knowledge should be valued and it should be used in policymaking. Notably, because the lack of teacher voice has undermined the prestige of the profession, causing teacher shortages in many countries. I was very happy to see in the video you presented earlier today that you're quoting the Global Report on Teachers that we have actually just published in February, and which highlights a shortage of 44 million teachers globally. Now, the reason for this shortage has to do, on the one hand, with a growth in let's say the demand of education, so fertility rates and population growth, so therefore more schools are needed, more teachers are needed from here till 2030. But 58% of those shortages are due to the fact that teachers are leaving the profession. They're simply leaving the profession, sometimes due to a lack of recognition, a lack of invitation to co-design, and not only to implement education policies. So it is important to say that teacher shortages have to do, yes, with the material conditions of teaching, as you know, salaries, remuneration, workloads, and the rest, but also with this lack of trust, of confidence in the work that teachers do, and of convening teachers to actually be decision makers in education. Now, if we want teachers to become policy partners, knowledge producers, and intellectual guides, then teacher education and professional development needs to be transformed as such. And also, if we value the knowledge of teachers as legitimate sources for educational change, this should be part of the definition of teacher professional development frameworks. So in short, rather than tinkering, we're thinking of a change in narrative, a change in paradigm, as has been explained before, and the tinkering understood not only as the small experiments that were referred to, but rather the research that teachers carry out in and for their classrooms, the knowledge that they produce in practice. I think this is very important. So it is about a shift, a change in narratives, including the transformation on teacher professional development from a top-down, central, thematic, one-off, individual compulsory sessions to a lifelong and a life-wide exercise of reflection and exchange, led by teachers and based on the knowledge that they actually produce in practice. This includes, of course, convening other intellectuals from different fields, but teachers should be leading the why and the what of teacher professional development. So just at the end of the day, to respond to your question, I think it is about that shift of paradigm so that teachers can actually participate not only in the delivery of classes, but also in curricular reform, in assessment of learning outcomes, in the governance of education, be it from the school management and leadership all the way to the policy. So we need to ask ourselves today if current teacher professional development models or systems of teacher education and CPD are actually training teachers to assume this role, to take up this transformational protagonist role in order to shape education. When we look at education systems throughout and particularly teacher education institutions, the answer would be probably not. Probably these traits, these competencies of reflection on practice, of sharing of ideas, on knowledge, which might happen in communities of practice, which might happen at the pedagogical level, is not happen at the policy level. So that's what I would say for now. I think it is important to consider that shift of paradigm by which teachers actually lead professional development, decide what this can be on, and share their knowledge for TPD systems to actually be grounded in realities and effective. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carlos. Think you talk about the need for the change in the narrative with that paradigm shift and like really looking at teachers as the decision, like the co-decision makers, right? Where they are the policy partners, the knowledge generation, the emphasis from a top-down approach, one whereby there is more teacher voices to ensure that the professional learning of teachers is more monitored and managed by themselves, like very much in line with SDG 4 of lifelong learning, right? That is really critical, right? Let us move on to Padma. For the next three panelists, they are actually representatives from each region. So we have got Padma from Asia, we have got Jolie from Africa, as well as Sebastian from Latin America, right? So let's invite like Padma, who is the head of Center for Teacher Education, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, based in India. And my question to Padma is, how does empowering teacher agency through systematic reform offer more effective pathways to address deep-rooted inequities in education? And it's over to you.
Thank
Padma.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm speaking from my experience of having developed and worked on large-scale systems for teacher professional development, both within India and also in Africa and in Bhutan. This is the Connected Learning Initiative and the Connected Learning for STEM, which has been funded by the IDRC. And I've learned through this experience that we cannot understand working at scale unless we actually do it at scale. We can't develop systems in small little crucibles of perfection and then hope to scale them and expect that they will succeed on scale. I feel the question of addressing equity in the education system in effect actually speaks back to the question of how we think of the teacher herself and our positionality in relation to teachers, and whether the system in a way responds to the need to treat equity as one of its central problematics. In this context, I feel that systems in which we work within systems. So we don't really have the luxury of proposing paradigmatic shifts, but we're really all the time working in incremental ways within systems, hopefully with a systems reform framework always in place, and being somewhat opportunistic in a principled way to forefront core ideas of teacher agency, teacher professionalism, as we tinker in the system to try to make it achieve equitable learning for teachers themselves, and through that experience, equitable education for students. I find, though, that the system is problematic and it offers the potential of this kind of incremental shift towards a holistic systemic vision, while at the same time constraining us. And I speak especially from the perspective of the Global South. Many systems, like systems in India, have begun to move in the direction of trusting the teachers. In fact, they may not trust teacher educators, but most systems trust teachers definitely. At the same time, we find that there is this tendency to view teachers as deficit people and lack conviction that TPD actually can support teachers' knowledge to develop. And ultimately, the system is chronically underfunded. And this is the kind of situation with which we're dealing all the time. And therefore, paradigmatic shift is very, very ambitious. But we can hope rather that we opportunistically seize occasions when we can further an agenda of equitable education for teachers and through teachers for students. I feel that the experience that I've gathered tells me that we need to be relentless in this effort of furthering the ambition of keeping teachers at the center and keeping teachers' agency as the single most characteristic that can enable teachers to achieve equity within classrooms. And we need to constantly gather evidence that this is possible to achieve. I have found in my experience that there is a space, a third space, that enables us to work with teachers with this kind of vision and to further the equity discourse both within teachers' professional development and through teacher agency to enable this to achieve it in the classroom. And I feel this is the field which I regard as a professional field. Often we think of teachers when they enter into service as basically through the lens of their employers. But I feel all of us in the profession relate to teachers too. And we can continue to relate to teachers through a professional field, not necessarily through the lens of an employer. And I think when we do that, we acquire more degrees of freedom than just a system will offer us. We are able to work with teachers' identity. We are able to reclaim their membership in the profession of teaching. And we, especially from the position of the university, associations, NGOs, I feel we acquire new ways of being able to strengthen teachers' conviction that their agency is the most important thing. And it is through their agency that they will actually achieve equity within the classroom. And I feel we need to reclaim the space and develop this as complementing what we traditionally think of as the system with which we have to work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pratma. I think you have really highlighted the importance of an incremental shift, right? That a paradigm shift in a way may be quite unrealistic, given that TPD often is operating within a system that we should be taking up the opportunities, right? But we could actually be rethinking about how we view teacher professional development from the perspective of the teachers, right? In terms of really trying to empower them, trying to unpack the type of identities, the type of the agencies that we would expect from them, rather than to always view TPD from the employer's perspective in terms of what schools and what parents expect of teachers and the type of competencies that they require to be able to develop. Okay, next, let's just move on quickly to the next panelist who is on site, right? So we have got Sebastian, who is a researcher and coordinator of education area at FLASO, which is the Latin American Faculty of Social Sciences, right? He is from Argentina, and my question to him is, how does empowering teacher agency through the inclusion of their voices in TPD reforms address inequities and improve quality and efficiency across diverse education contexts?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share some reflections on behalf of the FLAXO Argentina research team. Going straight to the point, I would say that including the voice of teachers in the TPD implies doing so under a principle of equity, that there are inequalities of conditions and powers between group of teachers. But in addition, we have some social representations, dominant imaginary for policy actors or for society in general, about what a teacher does, what a teacher is, what a teacher is willing to do or not. So it is necessary to problematize this and take it into account, so that the scaling up does not respond only to the interests of certain teachers, for example, white, urban, highly educated teachers, or to socially constructed stereotypes, for example, that teachers do not want to improve or change. In order to scale up, we need to problematize this with the stakeholders we are working with. Continuing with the criterion of equity, I think that it is necessary to pay attention to teachers' identities in the system in order to think about scaling that includes them. For example, rural teachers' identity, teachers working in intercultural settings. Because those identities gives them a proper social recognition. So massive models that do not take into account those conditions, contexts, and identities may not challenge those teachers, generating disinterest and therefore affect not only equity but also efficiency, because you have like much budgetary effort and little scope there. It is difficult to think about teachers' agency in relation to the TPD if we do not consider that teachers are interested in being consulted, that not only their opinions are taken into account, but also the gaps, what it costs them to be trained in terms of gender, territories, resources, skills, etc. So I think it's necessary to start from the assumption that teachers want to become professionals for whatever reasons: increase certification or salaries, acquire self-confidence, curiosity, solving teaching problems, belonging to prestigious groups, etc. And those reasons being a relevant factor to think about the scaling up. In the Argentine case, for example, we're seeing what happens with teachers who access the TPD and why others do not, problematizing what I said at the beginning, that teachers want to be professionals even more, but there are gaps and conflicts that prevent them to access to TPD. Quality is often associated with and is the result of what a society considers valuable. In this case, considering the value of teachers' work in each context implies including them in the TPD, what they already know, what they know about their context, what they know about their students, without pretending that the rhetoric of change takes everything away. So quality may be to consult them about what is valuable to them and how to make their tasks more rewarding for them and recognized in each context. Finally, I would like to point out that including the voices of teachers does not mean for us researchers uncritically reproducing their opinions as if our place as researchers did not exist. It is necessary to avoid paternalistic or romantic positions where we put ourselves in the place of saviors of teachers who are never listened to. Our listening to teacher voices must be situated and should be critical, so we should address also the opinions of other group of teachers, the principals, supervisors, policy makers, students, and family also. That way, we're assuming that the TPD is a field of conflict and disagreement and sometimes agreement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sebastian. I think the key message of teachers as partners of TPD is quite critical, right? If we are really talking about empowering the teachers, and you spoke about teacher identity, the need to actually be able to listen to diverse group of teachers from, or teachers that may be serving marginalized like communities, may it be like communities that might be very intercultural or communities that might be in the remote or rural areas, right? But the thing is, what you have actually emphasized is, as we listen to the voices of the teachers, it's quite critical that we have got to engage the other key stakeholders as well, right? Which means that there must be that recognition of the voices of the other key stakeholders, the school leaders, like the local government, the Ministry of Education, the teacher education institutions, etc. Thank you. Right. Last but not least, let's move on to Jolly. Jolly is from, she is a senior lecturer from the Center for Gender Studies and the College of Arts and Social Science for Rwanda, right? And my question for her would be very much like similar to that to Sebastian, right? Except that now I would really want Jolie to share with us from the gender perspective, from that lens, like how would you address that same question of empowering teacher agency through the inclusion of their voices? Thank you. Jolie, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever we are. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share. I will just start by a little bit romanticizing the teacher's voice, although you said we shouldn't. Yeah, I just think back on during one of our research that we are doing within this TPD program, through talking to one of the women teachers that we are researching in one of the schools. And I mean, she was kind of taken back by like, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing someone of a team of people coming to ask us about issues of women teachers. So I would at least start by that. But again, we have to be aware that we can't only look at the voices of the teachers. We have to look at it, at them also within the wider context, as Sebastian was saying. But really, the voices of giving teachers a voice, or women teachers a voice, or from a gender perspective, again, I find it that in looking at our situation, for example, women teachers, the research we are doing, for example, is focused on a program that is a TPD program that is trying to promote increase skills, English language skills for all teachers. And because of that, it is looking at secondary school level. We have very few teachers who are women at secondary school levels, around only 34%. And we know that in most cases, the TPD programs do not even reflect the percentage of women or gender in terms of the women teachers who are represented in the system. So you find that there are even fewer. And because of this, really, the giving a voice to the women or to women teachers to put forward some of their issues, I think is very important. I think in some of the TPD programs that we are talking about, the lived experiences of teachers is always missing, because we tend to start with what is being offered from maybe programs. If I look again at the situation in Rwanda, that most of the TPD programs really come from donor-driven. They come from we don't have an organized system of TPD, or teacher professional development. So they will come in, and teachers have to participate for a short period, depending on the focus, whether it is science, whether it is English language and all that, and then it ends. So the teachers have no say in that. They will take on whatever comes. So in this case, or in this situation, when we are talking about talking from the experiences of teachers and trying to see what they mean or what they understand by being involved in these TPD programs, I think we find that this could give them voice and give them a chance to experiment or to bring out what the issues are, and be able to participate or have some kind of ownership of these TPD programs. So I believe that, yes, giving a voice is important, or increasing teacher agency is important. in order for the programs to come on board and to be owned. But also we realize that we have to think of other stakeholders. For example, the TPD program, it does not operate outside the system that we are talking about. So each country has its own context, and we find that even when we are talking about the gender, but we are thinking also of other exclusion. We have the disability part of it, where teachers with disability may not be represented within the TPD programs. We have the remote rural, or teachers who are from the rural. Those ones also may not be represented in the system. So we have to really look at a broader context of what is happening, without only thinking about the women teachers. Yeah, the voice of the women is important. And I believe that if we are talking about equity, or we are talking about quality, we cannot have quality without really equity. The two have to go together. And so we have to think broadly on these issues and ensure that the the TPD that we are talking about can be scaled. Still, again, as I said, each context is different. We find that within the African context, for example, the issue of having very few women teachers into the system, especially at secondary school level, can be wanting. So it is important that we bring on many voices of the teachers and give them a chance to speak, or a chance to articulate some of the issues, the needs that they have as women teachers. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jolie. Right, so I think like you have actually like emphasized the importance that yes, like the voices from the female teachers is really important, but the thing is we have got to be like, when we look at the gender perspective, we need to ensure that we are able to look at like teachers from very diverse groups as well, not necessarily just the female teachers. That might be constrained and restrained by the way the society might stereotype the role, right, of the female members of like the female members of the society, right? Thing is, because I'm not that ruthless in my moderation, so that means part 2 is going to be shorter, right? For better, for worse. Great apologies to those that are online as well. The next question is actually to all 4 of the panelists, right? And instead of 3 minutes each, maybe we can have 1.5 minutes each, right? To address this question about concerted action. So the question is, what concerted actions can we take to move towards transforming the TPD system to realize the principles of equity, quality, and efficiency at scale, right? So maybe we could go the same way that we have started. So maybe Carlos, followed by Padma, and then maybe Jolie first, and then Sebastian. Yeah. So I would probably hand over to Carlos. You have got 90 seconds.
Very good. I'll use these 90 seconds just to say that I think one of the challenges, as has been discussed by panelists as well, has to do with the diversity of the teachers and the teacher voices that are actually heard around the needs, the wants, the aspirations that teachers have for professional development, for the professionalization of teaching practice. And I would just like to share that that happens also if the teacher workforce actually reflects the diversity of the communities they serve. And it's not often the case. We know teaching is a feminized profession, but we know it's only in early childhood education, about 95% of teachers are women. When we go into higher education, STEM, and the rest, this proportion reverses. The same goes for teacher leaders, for example, to union member leaders as well. Less than 30% are female. So there's an issue with gender equality that Jolie was mentioning that I think is very important to look into as to the needs for training, which include gender equality measures. But also to the fact that there's a lot of teachers whose voices are not heard and have been sidelined. And here it is a matter of equity as well. One of the panelists was mentioning the rural teachers or indigenous language speakers, for example. We know from the Global Education Monitoring Report that UNESCO launched in 2016 that about 40% of students worldwide study in a language that is not their own. And sometimes it is not mastered by their teachers either. So there's also something very important when it comes to linguistics, to cultural diversity, that need to be taken into consideration. Rurality was also mentioned. And this speaks of different needs of professional development, be it linguistic, be it in terms of gender, be it for multicultural or intercultural, multilingual, multi-grade classes, etc. Not to mention education in emergencies, crisis-affected context, etc. So just to say, we should look into the diversity of the teaching profession, of the communities where they work, so that we can actually identify what those needs are. And again, I agree without romanticizing the issue of teacher voice, but certainly promoting the issue of teacher voice. Those needs should come from those teachers in those particular classrooms. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carlos. Let's just move on to Padma.
I think the one area that we would really need concerted action is to enhance public understanding of teaching as a profession. I feel public education systems are well understood and teachers work in that, but the public has very little imagination of what teachers' work is and the fact that it needs professional education. And I think these perceptions go into informing the way in which we treat teachers, approach the professional development, try to control them, lack respect of their agency. And I think this needs to be much more widely discussed in the media, through the media, making teachers and teaching come alive in the public imagination. I think we need a public, what is it called? A media blitz, bringing teachers and making them visible. They're common but not visible, right?
All right, thank you, Padma. Let's just move on to Jolie.
Thank you. I'll go back to the words of Frida about the tinkering. I still feel that with even the tinkering with some of the issues to promote gender equality, because this is kind of my focus, is important. Looking at some of the adaptations that we are seeing to support women teachers. Yeah, it could be tinkering, it could be just making a few changes, but they are very important. And I think through the use of inviting women teachers with children to come to attend TPD programs, where most of them were really missing out of this activity or out of this training in the past. So through these small adaptations, or some of these adaptations that support such women teachers to bring their children to the training and participate, they may look like it's a bit of tinkering, but I think they are very, very key. And again, We have also seen it with teachers with disability, the few teachers we have in the system who have been supported to attend these TPD programs. And I think the issue for us is to see how to scale this up to ensure that it is taken on in the whole system. I think that is what I would like to see. There may be a few changes here and there, a few adaptations, but I think they're doing great. But how do we ensure that these adaptations are scaled up? Thank you.
Thank you, Jolie. And Sebastian?
Thinking about concerted actions, I would like to make a zoom on the issue of coherence that Freda had spoken about. A relevant question, at least in Argentina, is when teachers engage in TPD. In service training requires that teachers have time to listen to courses and meetings, but that implies to interrupt the school day. So, and in systems that has a lot of issues, a lot of problems with the learning outcomes, interrupting the school day for children is a costly decision. So somehow we need to design TPD proposals that reduce the interruption of the school days, but also discuss with families that if teachers are not teaching, it is to improve the quality of their work. We need to build some alliance there. And other point about coherence, and I finished just mentioning both of them, is that we need to work better with the coherence of the initial training and the TPD system. Teachers perceive that there is a lack of coherence, for example, in the pedagogical approaches, and it diminishes the perceived quality. Teachers realize about that. And coherence must also be an issue when we engage with supervisors and head of schools in the TPD, because when teachers comes from the TPD and experiment and do new things in classrooms, they need someone to validate those changes. And we need to engage there the principal and the supervisor so they can perceive that it's a systematic change and not only an individual change.
All right, thank you, Sebastian, and thank you, panelists. I've been criticized not only for my lack of ruthlessness, but also for my lack of time management. So we have got to cancel part 3. So part 3, for those on site, you could ask us questions. Maybe later tomorrow, because we have got one more day of meeting. For those online, you could just probably one of the support staff, you could actually post the email address and they could actually just email us and we could be addressing some of those questions. So to quickly round it up in 1 minute, I think it's quite clear that the empowering teacher agency is critical. Right, but as we are empowering that teacher agency and ensuring that they are partners in the professional development process, we have got to, we need to ensure that we are able to engage the other stakeholders, right? So it's not just the education stakeholders, but Padma have also brought out the need to really acquaint the public about the idea of the need for lifelong professional learning. Right, which is really critical, right? At the same time, there is that need to be able to try to draw upon technologies in order to do the TPD at scale, but to be able to localize it, right? At the same time, to be able to constantly take opportunities for system change and system learning, right? Not necessarily a drastic paradigm shift, right? But one that is incremental, right? So it might be more of the tinkering rather than that paradigm shift, right? But of course, the paradigm shift might be actually driving that tinkering itself. So thank you very much, and back to Vicky.
Thank you, Chirp, and thank you very much to our esteemed panelists, Carlos, Padma, Jolie, and Sebastian, for giving us Much food for thought. A round of applause for them and also for Frida. Round of applause. Certainly your insights will be crucial as we continue working to translate the knowledge and evidence we generate in our work in ETI and more broadly the TPD at Scale work of the coalition into tangible actions and real impact. Beyond research and knowledge mobilization, key pillars of our TPD at Scale work are capacity strengthening and influencing policy and practice. So to conclude tonight's event, we have Dante Castillo, Policy and Innovative Practices Director at SUMMA, who will speak about the opportunities the coalition has designed for translating knowledge into action. Dante?
Thank you, Vicky, and thank you, our guest, for participating in this panel discussion. Well, as Vicky has said, as a coalition, we have designed professional learning opportunities. The goal of the capacity strengthening component, I would say, is to enhance the knowledge, skills, and capacities of different actors in the TPD system. Particularly, I would say three: government, policymakers and decision makers, TPD system program designers and implementers, and researchers to better perform their respective functions. Those three are critical actors and stakeholders for this. We would like to show a short introductory video that explains what these courses are all about.
TPD at Scale and Innovation in Teacher Professional Development is a set of free interactive multimedia online courses that provide a framework and analytical tools for strengthening teacher professional development programs and systems. The courses draw from the latest global research, evidence, and innovative practices at the intersection of teacher professional development, learning at scale, and accessible, contextually appropriate technologies. Blending theory and practice, the courses are designed for senior officials in ministries of education, policymakers, TPD program designers and owners, funders, and other stakeholders such as NGOs, universities, and research institutes. In these courses, you'll explore Global South models of TPD at scale, large-scale teacher professional development mediated by information and communication technologies, which you can adapt for your own contexts. The courses feature diverse authentic case studies of TPD at scale from 22 Global South countries, including the Philippines, India, Uzbekistan, Zambia, Rwanda, Ghana, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Honduras. You will be guided step by step to analyze TPD in your context based on the 6 pillars of TPD at scale: policies, ICT, supporting capacities, partnership, learning design, and communication channels. The courses will help you to develop a TPD at scale plan, strategy, or policy brief tailored to your needs and goals. You'll explore how to choose online and offline digital resources, such as mobile phones, tablets, and messaging and social networking tools like WhatsApp and Facebook to meaningfully engage large numbers of teachers. And you'll gain insights into how to effectively balance equity, quality, and efficiency in TPD programs and systems. You can work through the courses flexibly, on your own or in a group. There are points for reflection and discussion with colleagues, and an optional section for a facilitator. The courses come with digital badges and certificates of completion. hosted by the UK Open University of the Open Learn Create platform, these courses are available in English, Spanish, French, Russian, and Arabic. They have been used and adapted by education professionals and practitioners throughout the Global South. We invite you to discover this collection of free online courses from the TPD Scale Coalition for the Global South and join the movement for capacity strengthening, innovation, and system improvement in large-scale teacher professional development.
Thank you. In ETI, or ETI we say in Spanish, the ETI, we are developing learning cycles that offer foundational knowledge on TPD at scale. These learning cycles provide participants with the opportunity to analyze, contextualize, and exchange insights on large-scale TPD through the lenses, as we have said and emphasized, through lenses of equity, equality, and efficiency. In ETI, we have already collaborated with the Southeast Asia Ministries of Education, CMO, which allow us to work with 9 of the CMO's member countries. Also, in Latin America and the Caribbean, we will be starting in November this year a learning cycle with our ETI partners and other organizations interested in building a community of practice around TPD. In this line, we are envisioning to have in 2025, next year, a learning cycle in Africa. So we invite all of you to explore the course and join us in this effort to share knowledge and identify new ways to enhance our teacher professional development system. Just to finalize my last word, we wanted to thank all the participants and the colleagues that have joined this event. To take out some ideas from this event, I would like to highlight maybe 3 key messages. There is a system need, to rethink and explore innovative approaches about how system can support and promote teacher professional learning. Especially, we have to pay attention to issues of equity, equality, and coherence. Using a well-known image, we have to deal with a very complex issue, an issue of recognition, redistribution, and participation. Secondly, we should be thinking about teachers as policy and research partner. We need a change in the narrative. So what we need is to challenge our ideas and to change our current ideas and our beliefs. Instrumentally, I would say Padma said it's necessary to be pragmatic, opportunistic, identifying and putting attention, I would say those tactical movements to change the system. And finally, we have asked about tinkering or shifting. But my question is, what type of change? In which component of the system? What degree of the change? Just some small adjustment to what we already know and do, or are we called to develop more substantive changes? It seems we need both incremental changes in our practices, but more radical changes in our ideas. I hope this conversation helps us to envision new ideas and practices. Many thanks. Vicky? We finished. Thank you.